Hey, everybody, it's the Dynamite Show. Paul Fontaine, not with Jeff Hawkins, joining me this week. Very special guest from PW Torch, Brian Zilem. We had some technical difficulties, but we're here. We're just a little bit late, but that's okay. Brian, how you doing?
Doing well. Apologies all around. We were not late because of Paul. It was all my fault. So I already feel like I'm letting Jeff down already. So I'm so sorry, Jeff.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Honestly, for the people listening on audio, they wouldn't even know the difference if we didn't tell them. So, and I do appreciate the patient people in the YouTube chat. I see some comments already, and I have a feeling this show may not have been as well received as sometimes we hope it'll be, and certainly what I was expecting when they announced the Continental Classic. Brian, did you watch the show that they did earlier in the day?
Oh, of course I did. Yes.
Of course you did. I didn't. I did do a show with Garrett from this site on our YouTube channel, just kind of breaking it down. I read the notes and I kind of knew what was going on. So, and honestly, like I wish that had been on TV. I wish they would have played that, like maybe last week's Rampage or something. Could have just been the selection show, But I guess they got a lot of masters to serve.
For sure. Even today, could you have like shoehorned that on TV at noon?
Maybe. Noon or even 6 o'clock, or 6 o'clock our time, 7 o'clock. I don't know if TNT would want TBS would want it, but it's too bad. Yeah. Was it good?
I found it fine. I mean, it was Toni and Toni, and then Eddie popped on later in the show. It was fine. Didn't have anything wrong with it. The only thing I could think of as far as like what you were saying, Paul, like obviously they don't want to do it any later because I believe 12 Central Time, you're looking around 6 o'clock UK time. So I believe they were trying to accommodate maybe, like you said, multiple masters outside of our like kind of cadence and responses. So, but it was cool. No complaints on the presentation at all. But like you said, it would have been cool to maybe kind of have it like featured.
Did you say it was Toni and? Did you say it was Toni and Toni?
It was Toni and Toni.
So did they go like, you call me your friend, but you only want my gifts, and I'll never see you if you had no loot?
They did not do that, but okay. If they would have had Toni and Toni all together doing it.
Toni and Tone.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe they could have got Toni Storm in there and she could have done her own version. No, but I like the format. I think the for those that didn't see me on the thing with Garrett, I thought the selection of wrestlers was kind of perfect. We've got some guys in there that can take losses. We've got some guys that we're not sure of, and then we got some definite favorites. And I like a tournament like that. I think some people were expecting like 12 main eventers, and that's really difficult to book. So and especially when you got a pay-per-view coming up, and you're going to have some title matches, and you're going to have some big feuds and whatnot. Like, I'm very happy with the field. We'll talk about the first few matches. The matches are the matches, right? So, I think there's some things they could have done and maybe should have done to make it better, and we'll talk about that too. But I'm, cautiously optimistic, and I know there's a lot of I assume you watch Full Gear, right?
Yes.
So are you? I've seen. I mean, there is no middle of the road feedback on this show. I shouldn't say that. There is either people that were really liked it. There's people that really hated it. And then I find there's a lot of people that liked it quite a bit, but there's certain parts of it that brought it down for them. So they're kind of in the middle. And I land in that last category, to be honest with you. But
for sure. I think me and you, Paul, have our timelines I think we have it filtered pretty good where we're not going to see the over the top people that are like, one way or another. I honestly didn't see a lot of bad feedback. Like you said, I saw more kind of like in the middle where it was in the middle, but then like the highs were really high. So even if it was kind of like a grade in the middle, it barely put it over the top, just because, obviously if there was folks fans of the Texas Death Match or the ladder match or even the women's three-way, things of that nature, I just really saw a lot of unanimous feedback of does really good. And obviously the show long angle, like you said, I think you either probably liked it or didn't. I'd like as far as the wrestling match, I thought the main event actually turned out great. I didn't really
thought
need
it
all
was
of it.
Incredible match. The main
Yes.
event, like once the bell rang.
Yeah.
The story they told. I even like
a lot of plot holes.
Having Adam Cole out there. Like some people say, well, why did he need to be out there? And why did they have to do the storyline? I even understand it. I don't like it, but I understand it. He had to be there. He had to be willing to take that bullet for Max in order to establish their friendship even more. He's been off screen for a while. People, they're still like, everyone's expecting one of these two guys to turn on each other. So the idea is you solidify their friendship. Either they're going to stay friends, and I still think that's a possibility, or one of them's going to turn on the other. And the stronger you make that friendship, the more impactful it's going to be when one of them turns on the other. So I get why they did it, but I also think doing it on a pay-per-view and telling your audience, hey, we advertise this main event for a month, we're not going to have it. Sending out a tweet saying that Adam Cole is going to be defending the title against Jay Lethal when anyone with a brain knows it's not happening. Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah.
So
probably a little overthought, because if anything, you could have had like a show long angle of, the doctors not wanting Max to go out there, but him telling him no. You could have really done all that without the Adam Cole graphic, because it's like, guy literally has a broken foot. I mean, everybody knows he's not going out there. So you could have added that. I mean, honestly, I would have loved to see just a pure wrestling match, which in theory we got, and it was great. It just when I did my write up for the go home show for Collision last week, I knew I wasn't really a fan of the belt theft. It's never usually like AEW is kind of above that, and they should be. And Jay White, for who he is as like a wrestler, and like we want to think he's a big deal, especially with these new folks coming in that are not familiar with New Japan. Like this is very, that they're above that, and I would have liked them to think of something a little bit more creative than that. And
do you remember the last time they did a belt theft angle?
For AEW?
Yeah. Not a Rose. Not a Rose with Jade.
Oh,
I loved it.
Ugh.
I absolutely loved it. The match was terrible, but I love Nyla walking. I thought that one was, a lot of people hated that, and I think it even got votes for like worst angle and stuff, but I don't know. I like that one. I didn't mind Jay, taking the title, but I mean, there were too many times when Max could have got it back and he didn't. And
exactly.
That kind of took me away from it. But let's get into this show. They started with the last few weeks, it's been different. They've sometimes had a cold open. It'll be like Renee talking to MJF or something like that. But this week it was kind of your standard Dynamite. You had the credits. I noticed Will Ospreay in the graphics, which was kind of cool. And then they opened with the announcement of the Classic and mentioned the leagues, and they had graphics up there. And, they basically told them all. Excalibur, he said leagues, and then he said blocks, and then he said pools. So he wanted to make sure that everybody knew, this is what it is. And then we got our very first match in the Gold League. Swerve Strickland coming off the big win over Hangman at Full Gear against Jay Lethal, who lost to Eddie Kingston on the pre-show of Full Gear, and in the Gold League. And they spent this match basically like the first half of the match going into the commercial. All they did was talk about the tournament itself, and the match was just kind of a backdrop to them explaining the tournament. And Excalibur's like, you might not be familiar with round robin tournaments, that everyone's going to wrestle 5 times, and if you lose, you're still in it. Tony Schiavone mentioned that it's the first time since the 80s that 3 promotions have come together to create a Triple Crown. I kind of hate that, because everybody knows that Ring of Honor is just basically NXT for AEW. But crowd was totally behind Swerve, even though he's a major heel, but they loved it. No Nana, because as we know, no interference, no seconds allowed at ringside. So Swerve's shoulder was all taped up. they made a point of mentioning that if someone interferes, it's a DQ and a point deduction. So it's huge if someone interferes. And I had even thought, we might get an angle here where like Hangman would interfere and cost Swerve the match, and maybe Tony Khan would suspend him, and it just to kind of enforce that stipulation. But they didn't do that. They also mentioned that Rampage is going to be at 7 p.m. Eastern this week, so it'll be airing before Collision. And if you can tell, like I'm paying attention to the commentary, I'm watching the match, but like to be honest, like nothing was happening in this match. They're just wrestling, like there wasn't anything spectacular. Both these guys, were probably, they both had pretty heavy matches on Saturday. So they mentioned Will Ospreay and that he'd signed, and they segued that into a plug for ticket sales for Wembley. And that wouldn't be the last time they did that on this show, so they're really pushing that. And then watching this match, it's going on. Like Jay Lethal never even this was basically an extended enhancement match. He didn't even tease, unless I missed it. But Swerve eventually just hit the Swerve stomp. And sometimes he needs to hit 2 or 3 of them. This time it was 1, and he got the win. And that was that. Simple match. It was good. It was well wrestled. The right guy won, and Swerve gets 3 points.
Yeah, I would say not fussy, which I would say for what AEW can be sometimes, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think they did a fantastic job of just kind of going over. There's nothing wrong with kind of spoon feeding your audience sometimes, because I know some people feel a kind of way where you don't want to necessarily WWE like everything over someone's head, but honestly, a lot of these folks have never seen a round robin for a wrestling company, so give this opportunity the first night of the tournament to display it. I saw people kind of upset Swerve was in this. I don't mind Swerve being in it, because if you're not strapping him up at the end of the pay-per-view, why not? And another thing AEW's been, I guess, kind of gotten off of the rails is they generally have lost track of hot guys.
Yeah.
They kept Swerve top of mind because to me, Paul, I mean, obviously you've been, studying wrestling for a long, long time. But to me, I think starting the show is still a really, really big deal. To me, when you open and close, I still think that's a big deal. And the reaction, obviously, Chicago, that's one of the best. To me, that's the mecca of wrestling. Cities,
certainly for AEW.
Quite honest. Yeah, for AEW especially. That pop was really good. They were behind Swerve the entire time. Pretty slow, I would say, the first half. Second half was a little bit better. Swerve was obviously selling his ribs, obviously from Hellacious Just Messy out on Saturday. And it was just working over Lethal's ankle. Or, I'm sorry, it was his knee. I'm sorry, his knee.
Yeah.
Swerve, did a couple unique things. He did like a, what was it? A stretch muffler, but he stood up kind of on his back, which was very cool. I feel like I've never seen that before. Maybe in All Japan they do that stuff all the time. I've never seen that on US television, so very cool. But yeah, Swerve wins.
And it makes sense because a lot of Lethal's offense is based on, the running and the diving and stuff. So, and getting the lethal injection, a lethal combination, so that's kind of taken that out of his game plan. I like that. And I agree that, I think Swerve is probably going to go a long way in this tournament. I think there's a decent chance he makes the final 4. And, so for him to come out of this, maybe getting a big win over someone in his block, I predicted an upset of this tournament might be Swerve beating Mox at some point. So, if that's all that happens for Swerve in this tournament, like that's playing off of the Hangman win, and then he's got this win here. So that would be at least 2 wins in the tournament. Maybe he's going to take a loss and they'll blame it on being hurt from Hangman, whatever. So, but yeah, it was like my review kind of sounded negative. I don't think it was negative. It was it was there and it served a purpose, and it was perfectly fine opener. And I don't even necessarily want, there's an argument to be made that you want to kind of kick it off with, like a 5-star match or something like that, but that's not really necessary.
Right. Especially I could be reaching, bro, but to me, I thought this was a good way to kind of slow beat the tournament because, like you
Yes.
said, you don't want to necessarily like blow your load night one because
Yes.
it doesn't like, oh my god, because like even traditionally for the G1, they're not going to
Mhm.
necessarily have those 5-star matches every night. Yeah, you're going to have your Torianos versus Evil,
Yeah.
but even if you look at the blocks structurally, there's really, to me, other than maybe Lethal and potentially Briscoe, there's not a lot of guys that are just going to eat L's. Everything is going to be remotely interesting. Where, I thought potentially that you could have had an upset of Briscoe tonight, but obviously we'll get
Yeah.
to that later. But I didn't. I don't mind them starting off slow. It's really
No.
okay because especially if Tony has a full month, several shows to build this. Let's build this up, build it, continue, because I guess that's been one criticism consistently of AEW. Okay, like yes, give us fantastic, like we get great wrestling world run, right? But like, are you able to slowly build on that till you can peak it at the right time?
Yeah, exactly. All right, we went backstage with Renee, and she had Orange Cassidy, Hook, and Shibata with her. They're wrestling a match tonight. They didn't. I don't think they told us who it was going to be, but we'd find out later. And Orange Cassidy said he has an announcement, but before he can announce it, Wheeler interrupts him and basically almost downplayed the fact that he just beat John Moxley. Like he made all these excuses and stuff. And I don't know. I didn't really see the purpose of this. And then he went and he targeted Shibata's ROH Pure title. And he mentioned, watch my match that I'm going to have tomorrow on ROH. It's a pure rules match, and I'm coming after your title. So I assume we're getting Wheeler and Shibata at Final Battle. And also, I thought it interesting that they're plugging Honor Club on Dynamite, which Ronda Rousey is going to be on the show, and they didn't mention that, which that was curious, but
Yeah, you would have thought maybe they would have snuck that in, but
yeah,
maybe I don't know if that was maybe a call above their pay grade, maybe.
maybe they don't want to. Maybe they would have had to pay her more. Like that's the only thing I can
Potentially,
think of.
yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, this was fine. And we'd find out what Orange Cassidy's announcement was later on when he came out for his match. And then we get to MJF and Adam Cole, and I don't even remember this being announced, which surprised me. Like but then again, like as of 24 hours ago, I don't think they'd announced anything for this show. And then and so they may have announced this at some point on Twitter during the day, but they come out. Adam Cole's on crutches. MJF's got a cane because apparently he dislocated his hip doing the that dive onto the ground on Saturday. So they've got new shirts, with the number 23 on them for Chicago. So that's good. And MJF grabbed some mics. And Brian, if you're not a regular listener of this show, you'll know that I take copious notes. So I'm going to go into this promo here, and so bear with me here. So he says his voice is hoarse because he's been chugging brews on Rush Street. Says there are girls out there that he wants to get deep with, and I don't mean pizza. And he says the devil has arrived in Chicago. So he's getting all his catchphrases in. He beat the undefeated Jay White on one leg, and Jay White learned that, he learned that he's truly Jay White's one of the best pro wrestlers in the world, but nobody's on the level of the devil. I've had the most title defenses. I'm the youngest. I'm the longest reigning champion, but I'm a bit too humble. But haven't I earned the right to toot my own horn? He says, you're looking at the greatest AEW world champion of all time because I'm Maxwell Jacob Friedman, yada, yada, yada. And he says, and none of this is possible without my bro Chacho for life. And the crowd goes, Adam! And then Cole grabs the mic and he says, long road ahead. Or he says, we're still the ROH Tag Team Champions with a little help from Samoa Joe. But he says, we got it done. Sorry, I mentioned that he still hasn't shaved. He says, it's great to be back in Chicago. We're still the ROH Tag Team Champions. But he says, bad news. He said, my ankle's still in real bad shape. I got a long road ahead of me, not even close to walking, let alone wrestling. But I'm going to work hard every day and come back at 100% and be the best Adam Cole I've ever been. I'm really worried about you, Max. I want nothing more to be here by your side, but I can't. The entire world is gunning for you, Wardlow, the devil, and his goons. And then Max says, let me cut you off, baby. The devil screamed with great furious anger when I was born. That man didn't want no competition. I'm going to find you, devil, whoever stole my mask, and the hell I'm going to send you will feel like heaven. And then all of a sudden, the camera cuts out, and we get a thing of the devil, and he has a terrible little laugh. And a lot of people think it's Jack Perry under the mask. So we'll see. But I listened to it, and it does kind of sound like it might be Jack Perry. I hope it's not, because that is going to go over like a fart in church. But so out comes Samoa Joe. And Joe says, seems we have a lot of concerned faces here. It's time for celebration. 2 massive victories. You went out there against all odds. And despite your less adequate friend not being able to defend you, you know what happened. You went out there with Samoa Joe and started your night right for the simple price of giving me my championship rematch. I've come to Chicago to make sure that honorable men honor their deals. And then MJF says, Joe, you got to take a step back because your breath smells like a skunk's asshole. He says, I've thought about our deal, and my response to your deal is as follows. And the audio cut out, but you could clearly say that he said, blow me. And Cole pleads with him to stop, and Joe went after him. And Adam Cole says, you can't do this. That's what the old MJF would do. This new guy, he's a man of his word. This man's a killer. I've had my fair share of encounters with him. I've been choked out more than I can count. That's why he is what he is. But this is why you are what you are. They don't love you because you're a great wrestler or a great interview. It's because you say what will happen, and it happens. So be a man of your word and give him his championship shot. Fans all chant, he's our scumbag. And MJF says, you know what, Joe? You want to face me with this belt? You wouldn't be the first ROH legend I've beaten in Chicago twice. And then he looks at the crowd, and the crowd kind of turned on him here because, obviously he's talking about Punk. And he says, how about MJF versus Samoa Joe right here, right now in Chicago? And Joe says, absolutely not. And I'm like, oh my God, this is just like WWE when Seth and Nakamura were doing the same thing, and Nakamura didn't want a title shot. And I didn't like it then. I didn't like it here. I'll explain why in a minute. He says, I want the best version of you fully healed, not the man in front of me. By world's end, you should be nice and chipper and ready to defend that title. And MJF says, let me get this straight. You want to wrestle me in Long Island, the most magical place on earth? And the fans boo. And he says, boo all you want. It's my personal truth. And you got yourself a deal, Samoa Joe. And they shake, and MJF pulls him in. And then Joe says, MJF says, let me explain something to you. And then he looks to the back and says, I love Chicago deep. You should calm down. And he says, wrestling MJF is about as bright as copping head from an alligator. You don't have many options the way you look these days. And Joe says, all this worry about the devil goes away today. You're considered my property. People don't touch my property unless I say so. When you think you're alone, I got your back, homie. I'm going to deliver the best MJF to Long Island. I'm going to take your title in front of everyone that you know and love. So Joe is good here. I will say I didn't like the fact that he offered him a title shot and he's turned it down. I thought he should have just challenged him for the title in Long Island. They could have still done the, blow me, and then Adam Cole convincing him, hey, to, do it. And then he takes it. He says, fine, I'm going to beat you in the most magical city on earth, blah, 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 right? He didn't need to tease tonight and turn him down. I don't see the point of that, unless really? Joe was a baby face and didn't want to face him when he was hurt. So what'd you think?
I mean, overall, I thought it was pretty solid. Like you said, I could have gone, like, if you take that out, it probably turns good to pretty good. Maybe it ran a little bit long, like, traditionally, like MJF segments, will do sometimes, but, they have another pay-per-view essentially in a month, that at least, they're giving everybody plenty enough time to say, hey, this is our main event. And, and this is in Long Island. I'm sure they're going to build it up as a really big deal. I'm not really sure how ticket sales are doing for it thus far.
So they put a thing out today. So a listener of the show sent it to me, a Dean, 4 for $40. So
interesting.
Yeah. So I think they might be having a bit of a problem selling, which I would not have expected with MJF as champion, but.
Right. And, it is essentially a month away. There's not really a card. Well, obviously, yeah.
I guess now they do, yeah.
Yes. So we'll see how it does, and then if they actually think logically and start doing media for it now rather than a week before, then I know that's been working for them, but hopefully they end up getting a pretty solid crowd for it. I really enjoyed their first match at Grand Slam. Really enjoyed it. I'm interested to see how the Devil and Wardlow intertwine with MGF as a whole. Paul, I'm not sure where you're at with just because it's weird because I've seen several different people kind of flip flop because at first everybody complained about MJF didn't really have anything to do. Now everybody's complaining MJF has too much to do. He's involved in too many things and too many people.
Yeah.
So it'll just be interesting. I assume with the title World's End, everything should theoretically be tied in a nice little knot, but we'll see where it is coming.
It makes sense. I mean, they're in his hometown, and they're so I still think it's Britt Baker.
Same.
Obviously with Adam Cole, obviously knowing about it, or maybe not. Maybe he's gonna be like, and maybe like he's not gonna know about it. At first, he's gonna be like, "How could you do this, Britt?" But I mean, it could be Joe. It could be MJF. It could be Jack Perry. I will say something, and this, bear with me, people listening and watching. I don't think it's this, but this is set up perfectly for it to be CM Punk. If you really think about it. No, I mean, number one, MJF mentioned here that he beat CM Punk twice in his hometown. They're going to Long Island. If the Devil shows up and costs him his title in Long Island and helps Samoa Joe, who Punk just had a series with, and I think they shook hands at the end of it. And Punk was the one that originally, MJF did that line on him, about the convincing the Devil that he doesn't exist. Punk used that line originally, I believe, in ROH or in ECW, right? I think.
Believe so.
It was, yeah. So I don't think it's him, but I mean, if they somehow could pull that off, and then the other thing is, you got the Bucks teasing they're taking a break. You got Hangman, who I assume is going to be off TV for a while. Even if it was short term, like I don't know, man. I think they could make some money with this, but I don't think it's Punk, but it is sure set up that it could be. That's all I'll say. But I'm going with Britt. I just and the fact that we haven't seen her, is telling. She did make a tweet. I sound like a grandpa, which I guess I am. But she had a tweet on Saturday about Adam Cole. Complaining because nobody tried to stop him from getting to the ring, and they had like 18 security guards trying to block MJF from getting there. I looked at the ticket sales and 6,000 for World's End right now. They're set up for 7,300. Obviously, that can be changed. I think it's Nassau Coliseum, so they probably get
okay, then that's not awful.
No, but they're already selling 4 for 40. So I mean, they're clearly trying to get that building full, which, hey, you know what? I mean, if they're at 6 now, they're going to get over 10 for sure. And maybe even 12. Like if this program gets hot, you mentioned like we're 6 weeks out. I mean, we already know the main event. We already know the tournament finals are going to be there. So we got 2 matches on the card already. So, that's pretty good for AEW, especially. So,
yep.
But yeah, I thought it was fine. It's established the main event for the next pay-per-view. You can't complain about that. And we'll probably get some. I think the TV with Joe and MJF is going to be better than MJF and Adam Cole. Just a suspicion.
Oh, for sure. The promos, exchanges are going to be. I like Jay White, but that's just not his bag, unfortunately. Maybe at some point it could be, but Jay White traditionally, he's more, if you can get a pre-tape, he's a good pre-tape guy. Like
his in-ring promos, it's the same thing every time.
Right.
Yeah. I sold out Madison Square Garden. I did this, I did that. He's like a better version of the Miz. Much better, better,
Yes.
better in the ring, more effective promo. I wouldn't necessarily say better, but I mean better at a pro wrestling promo than it is. Not necessarily better talker, but better, more effective promo. Next we got Hook and Shibata and Orange Cassidy against 2.0 and Jake Hager. So this match was total comedy. So they showed highlights of Orange Cassidy beating Mox at Full Gear. And then Orange Cassidy went to the table and he grabbed a mic and he said he's got a Thanksgiving surprise. And they played the Danhausen video and the place went nuts for Danhausen. So he comes up and they said later on they're going to give us an update on the Golden Jets. And they reminded us that Excalibur reminded us that they've got a title shot after beating the Bucks. And the match was fine. It was Hook, working most of the match. And then they got some hot tags in. Shibata was going nuts for a while, working with everybody, but mostly Hager, chopping him, and he looked real good. He had a sliding dropkick on Hager. Then they 2.0 attacked, and it was 3-on-1, and then eventually Danhausen got to the apron, and the big reveal was he pulled out Jake Hager's hat, and this place exploded like they saw a world title change. Like it was unbelievable. And Hager went after him, and then Danhausen cursed him. And then Hook tagged in, and this was funny. They had both members of 2.0, and they each had their sleepers on. Hook had the red rum, but Hook had the wrong guy, so he just switched guys. And then Orange Cassidy came in and gave Hager an orange punch, and Jeff Parker tapped to Hook, and the babyfaces got the win, and that was fine. It was fun.
Yeah, if you're going to have your party match, thrown in on your weekly Dynamite, this was fun. Hager, low-key, is a very underrated tag wrestler. I got a lot out of his exchanges with Shibata. Mm-hmm. I kind of want to see Hager and Shibata in a pure rules match just to see what it looks like.
Oh my God.
It'd be really fun.
Yeah, I mean Hager's a good wrestler, so yeah, I'm down for that. And he's not doing anything in AEW. Geez, send him to Ring of Honor. Do that.
Yeah,
or book
it would just be fun.
Yeah, book it on a pre-show for pay-per-view or something.
Yeah, it'd be fun to look at. And the way, I don't know if that was planned, but I thought that the way they did the finish was really smooth. So kudos whoever was the head producer.
If it wasn't, it was even more brilliant. But if it was planned. Kudos. But if they did that on the fly, even better. Next we got Renee interviewing Adam Cole in front of a garage, and I thought, oh man, Adam Cole's going into that garage door. But no, he did not. She wished him a great recovery. Cole says, I can't wait to start physical therapy. And then before he can get going, we hear off the camera, Adam! And Roddy comes in. Crowd's going nuts for him. Kingdom's behind him. He says, I'm sorry I missed you on Friday, I'm sorry I missed you on Saturday, but where were you on Friday? And then Cole says, shut up. He says, I'm not your best friend anymore. Back off and leave me the hell alone. And then he walks away, and then Roddy's all sad, and he tells the Kingdom he didn't mean that. And the camera just did this uncomfortable 10-second close up on him, and he's growing a beard now, and he's still got the glasses, and it was I thought it was weird because Cole kind of came off like a bit of a jerk. And meanwhile, Roddy's actually getting over as a babyface. So it was a little weird, but I will say something about Adam Cole, the way he's just keeps talking about how far away he is from coming back, and I can't even walk and all this stuff. I'm starting to wonder, maybe he's not as hurt as we think he is. And we're going to see him at some point, but I guess we'll see.
It's amazing to me because I think me and you, Paul, we're kind of in the same circles where it seems like the majority of people hate the Roddy, hate Adam, but the fans, man, this thing is getting over.
I like it. I'm not gonna lie.
Same.
I like it. I don't like I didn't like those skits that they did. I hated them actually.
Oh, those were bad.
In the house, and even the MJF, but Roddy as with his two flunkies and the getting out of the chair and wrestling and then going back, and even did you see the collision match? When he,
I thought he was
dropped on his head. Yeah, and then he, that for the angle, it's kind of perfect. Hopefully he's okay. But yeah, I didn't have a problem with this, and it's just I'm kind of interested to see where it's going. But the longer this goes on, I almost wonder if it's like just kind of to throw us off the scent. But I guess we'll find out. Yeah. I mean, these guys could be the minions too. Like, we just don't know. We got a recap of Will Ospreay signing his contract at Full Gear, and that led into another plug for Wembley. So they're really, I guess, December 1st is when tickets go on sale. So they're really pushing this now. And then we got Christian and the Patriarchy came out, and
this was fantastic.
So you like this? Okay. Yes. So Christian says, Chicago, you know the drill when I'm conducting business. Everyone knows a true champion is gracious and humble in defeat. As you all know, at Full Gear, it didn't exactly go our way. Crowd's giving him the what treatment, but he took care of that pretty quickly. He says, I did not lose that match. Nick Wayne did not lose that match. Luchasaurus lost that match, and he stares at him. And he said, that's unacceptable to me, and I went home. And I thought, how do I get rid of this losing aura? And then it hit me like a ton of bricks. Both of your lives have benefited and gotten better since you've been associated with me. And since you're both my children, it's time I recreate you both in my image. Luchasaurus, take a knee. And Luchasaurus just stands there and he says, I said take a knee. And he doesn't do it. And he says, I'm not sure what you're not understanding, you moron. Get down on your knee right now. So he does. And he says, the name Luchasaurus will always be associated with being a loser. I thought long and hard about your name. I came up with a name of strength, a name of toughness, a name that means certain victory and never means defeat. You are my finisher. This Saturday on Collision, you have a chance to prove it. You will be known from this point on as Kill Switch. Okay, that's interesting. And then he says, Nick Wayne, and Nick Wayne gets down on one knee immediately, and he says, get on your feet. He says, you don't ever have to get on your knees for another person. Understand me. You're different. You're special. The camera pans over to Luchasaurus. He's still on his knee. I thought that was just beautiful. He says, you're my son, my golden boy. I see you and I see things in you that I don't see in another person. You're the golden boy, and you're going to be forever known as the prodigy Nick Wayne. And then all of a sudden we see on the side shot is his mom's coming out, and they identified her finally. She's Shayna Wayne. And then Christian says, why is your mom here? And she's pleading with him. And I know Killswitch is still on his knee. And Christian says, you're a terrible mother. He says, listen, you like Nick unconditionally like any mother should, but it's not good enough. He said, you made $40,000 a year as a waitress. He's a prodigy. It's embarrassing. I can give him the world. You couldn't give him anything. You know something else? It's a good thing your husband's dead, Nick, because Nick would have disowned him anyways because his father sucks. And he's not as good a wrestler as I am. Not near the man or the father that I am. And Shayna was great here. She's just like,
terrific.
Losing it. Yeah. Shayna, it's really sad it came to this. And if you played your cards right, it could have been different. So she's hitting on him again. But, you should probably get out of here because your shift is about to start at Denny's. And then Luchasaurus, at this point, he had stood up and he got in between them. And I'm thinking, man, that was quick. We're getting to this turn already. And Christian says, get back on your knees. And he just stands there and he says, I didn't stutter. Get on your knees, Kill Switch. Get back on your knees now. And the crowd's chanting Luchasaurus. And Christian slapped him. And then he says, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Get on your knees or I'm going to make you take that mask off and show the crowd why you wear it. And he says, get back down. And then he pushes Kill Switch into Shayna, and now she's down. And Nick just stood there. Bump. I know, right? Well, she's a pro. She's done this for a while. Nick's just standing there watching. Doesn't do a thing. Crowd's chanting, you fucked up. And I think they're expecting Nick to turn on Christian. And but Nick left the ring, and he starts looking under the ring, and he grabbed a chair, and he passed it in the ring, and then he grabbed another chair. And the crowd's like, oh. Christian puts one of the chairs under Shayna, and Christian grabs the other chair and he's about to do it. And then he stops and then he gives a chair to Kill Switch and he says, do it now, smash her skull. And he's like channeling Don Callis here. And then all of a sudden Adam Copeland's music hits and he's down to the ring like fast. Like this wasn't a Jeff Hardy, stop and do my pose. He got there quick and speared Nick. Killswitch bailed, and Christian grabbed his belt, and he was about to hit Copeland with it, but Copeland has a chair, and he stands in his way, and Killswitch pulled him out of the ring. And then Copeland speared Wayne again, and gave him the impaler, Christian screaming, no, that's my child. And then he set up Nick Wayne for the concerto, and crowds chanting, do it. And Shayna's like crying in the corner, no, please, no. And Copeland completely ignores her and does the concerto. And that was it. And I mean, what's going to end up happening here is Shayna's going to freaking turn on Copeland because what he did to Nick Wayne. And I thought this was brilliant. Luchasaurus is, or Killswitch, I should say, is a complete sap, but it's fine. Like, obviously Christian has something on him.
Right.
And like, it's, man, this was, the performances here were so good from everybody. The only thing I would say, like I said, is that I mean, Luchasaurus came off very sympathetic, but it's not time yet. But eventually, when he turns, like, it's gonna do him some good. But they're not even close to that point yet. Shayna's gonna turn on Christian though, or on Edge.
Oh yeah, bravo to Shayna. She was tremendous because, you know, obviously she's been around the business for a very long time, but just the fact that she's been present on AEW television, but not obviously like as a character. And usually, especially, you know, women generally in these types of angles are not really given the best material and can struggle if they have to, I guess, overact. I did not feel like she was overacting at all. I thought she was being present. I thought she was being authentic. And then just that bump, Paul.
Oh, I know.
That like a pro. Like, her head hit the second, I believe it was the middle rope, and I was like, Jesus Christ! I was watching the G1.
Yeah, they even mentioned it. Like, you know, is she okay? Like, you know,
yeah, like she took that like a champ.
And her reaction, like, I mean, everything she did was authentic, like you said.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just I harken back to, obviously, you know, Christian and Trish back in the day. I don't know if it's gonna be that obscene.
Edge and Vicky.
Yeah, you know, like you're probably gonna get something hard, but I think this will be better because Christian Cage is just fat. He's not going to win Wrestler of the Year, but I mean, I think through all of AEW, he should, honestly, through all of AEW's turmoil, he has been one of the most consistent people on that television show, whether it be Collision, whether it be Rampage, whether it be Dynamite, whether it be a pay-per-view. He's there consistently delivering, and I like this potentially replacing like Don Callis stuff, because that Don Callis Omega stuff was just, I was ready for that to go. If you're going to have something that could be heavy, but I felt like this was authentic. This had heat. The crowd was going. I thought this was one of the loudest segments the crowd got all night.
They were way more into this than they were into the MJF stuff.
Oh yeah, 100%. And you're doing multiple. So you're teasing the turn of Nick's mom. You're Christian and Copeland is still not touched. You're teasing Luchasaurus stuff. So a lot, like, on the surface, if you would have told me you have 4 or 5 different things coming out of this entire story, I would have said, nah, no way. Like, but you do. That's great.
I assume we're going to get Christian and Copeland at World's End, and that'll be where, you know, like, there'll be a spot where she has, you know, Christian set up to take a spear, and she's going to like hit him in the back of the head with a chair or something, you know, like, and she's going to end up costing the match. And then we're going to have Christian and Shayna as like a power couple, you know, just running roughshod over everything with their son Nick, and, you know, maybe they're even going to get married, you know, in storyline.
So can Shayna, how do you think she would be in the ring?
Oh, I'm sure she's trained. Like, I don't know that, but I would be surprised if she wasn't.
Christian, Shayna.
Oh, against Edge
Oakland and Beth. Let's go.
I think she's still on. I think she's under contract to WWE, but I could be wrong about that. I'm not positive, but I think her just being a non-wrestler is fine. Christian's got to get like best promo votes. We were talking about this not that long ago, and I didn't even think of Christian. I don't know why, but this, is I'm gonna be remembering this promo when we get to the voting. So next we went to backstage to Renee. She was all over the show tonight, and it was 2.0 and Hager again. Speaking about being all over the show, and Menard is screaming, and what's going on? And he says Danhausen has a hat, and this is going on, that's going on, and then Jace shuts him up, and he says, "Focus on me." And then Renee says, "How are you feeling?" And she says, "I just want to wrestle. I'm tired of losing. I don't know if you're here to help me or hurt me, but I'm going to help myself and hurt someone." I thought that was a good line. She didn't deliver it great, but it was a good line. Yes. And then all of a sudden you hear a phone ring, and I actually thought it was my own phone. I'm like looking for my phone, and then like I see Jeff Parker looking down at his, and it's Ruby on, calling him, and Anna questions like, "Who are you going to be there for?" And he says, "I'm going to be there for you." It's, he says, "We're family." And I don't think at any point in this promo did they actually tell us that it was going to be like a three-way with Anna Jay, Ruby Soho, and Sky. So that was like an important detail that I didn't hear them say. So unless I missed it, but they probably should have mentioned that. But other than that, it was cute. There's a problem I have with this, and we'll get into it when I talk about the match, but I don't know. Anything to say on this segment?
No. I liked Anna trying to be assertive. Obviously, being with Jericho and crew has had a chance for her to be a little bit different, experience a lot of stuff. But I would love for them to get back to building Anna Jay back up, because when they were kind of throwing her out there in the deep waters, I still harken back. If you had to make a top 10 list, I still like the Anna Jay Jade Cargill match from Rampage. I believe it was about a year and a half, 2 years ago. I thought that was honestly one of Jade's best matches she's had in her wrestling career, which is speaking to both women, because they both have barely had time for a cup of coffee in the industry, and they had a great match. I think they had it was about 12, 13 minutes or something like that.
And she's had a couple of good hardcore matches too. So
yeah, absolutely. I just think there's something that I feel like at least there was if anything, I feel like there was tendencies trying to show, not tell, hey, I think there's a chance to be a babyface in there somewhere.
Yeah. What I would do with her is I'd get her away from this group and pair her up with Jack Perry when he comes back. Like, that's what I would do. But who knows? Maybe that's not what they want to do. Hopefully, anything but Jack Perry's the devil. All right, we got another tournament match. Rush and Jay White as part of the Gold League. And this was interesting because they did their entrances, and the Guns came out with Jay, and then immediately the ref is like, "You can't be out here," and then he goes to Jay and he's like, "Listen, you're gonna get disqualified." And then Jay's like, "No," and he's like, "Go," and so I like that. He was kind of panicking, and so they left. And Excalibur pointed out that they're lucky they didn't get suspended after attacking MJF on Saturday. I noted here, and I'd actually noticed it earlier in the show, but Excalibur read a promo for Woo Energy Drink during here, and I think maybe even Taz was like going woo during the promo or something. And they had like logos on the on either side of the video wall at the entrance of like Ric Flair, like a character of Flair, and a logo for the energy drink. So that was all over that. Hopefully they got paid well for that. Excalibur pointed out, that Jay White's loss to MJF was the first time he'd ever been pinned in AEW. And Taz pointed out that he's still not 100%. And then Excalibur said, "Oh yeah, well, similar to Swerve Strickland earlier tonight, who won." So what does that say about the guys they're fighting? But they had this match. Rush, you could tell that Jay White was going to win this, because Rush took most of the match, especially before the break. He was running wild, and he almost hit the bull's horns at one point, but then Jay covered him up, and then he did the tranquilo pose and then went into break. Come back from break, and it was pretty hot after the break. Like they're just going for the win the whole time. They weren't doing time calls, and you had no idea how long these matches were. And like part of the thing that makes the G1 great is they do these time calls. It's every 5 minutes, and then once they get past 15, it's every minute, and it adds to the drama of the match. And I tweeted this out, and Chris Samsa, who helps out New Japan with their stats and everything. And I think he's even done a little bit of work with AEW with that. He retweeted it and quoted it. He's like, yes, like they need to do this. So hopefully they will, because I think it would have helped this match, because I don't know how long it went, but if it went over 15, like at that point, that's when it should start getting desperate, and the announcers should be selling that, because if it goes to a draw, you only get 1 point. And honestly, like a win and 2 losses is better than 2 draws. So that's like, it's important, and they need to get that over part of it. So I think they actually need to do some draws in this tournament as well. But they started doing chopping battle. Jay stomped his knees. They did like a chopping thing. Roche hit a suplex, went for a thrust kick, but Jay White hit him with a dragon screw. And then Jay hit him with more chops to the point where his tape was coming loose. Roosh hit an release overhead suplex into the corner. Crowds chanting for Roosh. Excalibur says they're in the later moments of the match, but he doesn't tell us like how much time is left. And then Roosh charged the corner. Jay went for a Blade Runner. The ref's back got churned, and Jay White hit him with a low blow, and then he hit the Blade Runner for the win. So he cheated to win, but with no guns out there, that's about as clean a win as you're going to get from Jay White. And I kind of like this. I mentioned the Woo Energy, and Tuan here points out that there was also 4 energy drinks on the commentary desk. I didn't notice that, but yeah. Yes. I mean, hey, as the guy that's not here this week always says, get paid. So
yes,
yeah, for sure. So what'd you think of this one?
I probably like this a little bit better than Swerve and Lethal. Yeah, I think obviously Roosh, you could tell Roosh wasn't going as balls to the wall as he normally does, because it seems like this, especially, he's also recovering from that killer ladder match, so I'm sure he's banged up a little bit. You could tell Jay White was reserved a little bit as well. But
he had
to me, this was, again, not fussy. It wasn't like a 4 1/4 or anything like that. But it's fine.
I give it 3.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jay won clean relatively for him. I would have. I think I've seen better Jay White matches in AEW, but you know what?
Oh yeah.
It was not fussy. He won clean. There wasn't any bullshit. You can't really ask for anything else. And relatively, it's interesting on this block pairing, because obviously, you've got White and Swerve with Moxley in the same block. So I am curious to see, are you going to be able to achieve multiple goals here? Because a lot of people now are worried that, Jay White's cooked. And that is probably over exaggerating, but could you potentially serve multiple masters within this tournament? Ideally, you still want to keep Swerve a big star, and you want to reheat Jay White and make him a big deal, because, his promo in ring might be rough, but to me, he's still very fascinating, because just to go on my experience, I did not get Jay White at first. I didn't get him. You have to let him grow on you as just a presence in the ring. And I think from the first time I saw him to a year later, once I saw him in the ring with Okada at Wrestle Kingdom, and he beat Okada, I was like, oh, okay, this guy's a star. I get him now. So, and especially, he's going to be able to excel in these types of environments, especially, I think one criticism of Jay White, Paul, I'm sure you've heard this before, sometimes he can indulge too much in the elongated matches. So if anything, these are going to be nice and tight, under 20 minutes per, unless it's a draw. So you're not going to have this big, we have to build. So if anything, maybe that could benefit him as far as connecting with the audience a little bit more, especially if there's not going to be bullshit finishes.
Yeah, I don't know if you're aware of this, but people that listen to this show regularly would know. I canceled my New Japan subscription when he won the IWGP title, and I started it again the day he lost it. So that's how much I didn't like Jay White in New Japan, but I've liked him everywhere else. And so I think his style is more suited for American wrestling, personally for me. because because of the fact that we don't generally have these 30, 35, 40-minute matches, and that's where for him I think he gets boring. So I've been a fan of Jay White, the work he's done, and I thought he should have won here. I think what's going to happen here, you talk about him and Mox and Swerve, I think we're going to see an upset, and then whoever got the upset is going to end up losing a match that we probably thought they were going to win. So what I would do probably is have Swerve beat Mox, and then he looks like he's going to make the finals, and then Jay White beat Swerve. When they have their match, and then that gets Moxley into the finals. So Moxley's in the finals, but he does have that loss to Swerve. So then they can go back to that, after the tournament, especially if Mox wins. So that's what I would do. But again, you can even play with the draws, and maybe but I think that's going to come into play more on the other bracket with Garcia. I think we're going to have a couple. I think he's going to have a couple draws, and he's going to be basically like the spoiler. This is where it'd be nice if we knew what the schedule was and we could kind of, play out some scenarios in our head, but we don't even know what the matches are for next week. But yeah, we'll get to that more later. But so they pointed out, they put up the standings after. I like that. And Jay White and Swerve each have 3 points, and obviously Roosh and Jay Lethal have no points. So they aired highlights of the 4-way ladder match that you mentioned earlier, and then they showed the press conference after, and Jericho confronted Big Bill and Ricky Starks, and so they got into it there. So that's to set up a match that the Golden Jets are going to have with them at some point. And then they go backstage after the press conference, I guess, and Lexi asked Chris how he's feeling, and before he can answer, Ricky Starks and Big Bill attacked him. Big Bill, like wearing these glasses, he looked like just a big nerd, but ass-kicking nerd, maybe like Superman or something. But they were going after his arm and his hand, and Excalibur pointed out that Jericho might be gone for a while. So my sense here is that tag match isn't coming anytime soon, but it is coming. So I guess we'll see. Then we got a segment. This is going to be interesting because you apparently like this, and
yes.
I did not like this at all. So we could have a good discussion here. But RJ City and Renee. So Excalibur says, okay, we're going to go now to RJ City and Renee Paquette in the ring. And the next thing you see is a shot of the ramp, and they come out from backstage. So they're not in the ring. Excalibur's right there. I don't know why he thought they were in the ring, but anyways. They do a mock awards presentation. It's set up like the Academy Awards, and they tell a couple awkward jokes like they do at the award ceremonies, and the winner is Toni Storm, and then the screen goes to black and white, and she's in the crowd, and Luther's with her, and so she gets out of the crowd. She starts going up the ramp. She tripped at one point. I'm not sure if that was on purpose. If it was probably parroting something I never saw, but it could have. I don't know if it was, but and then so she gets out there, and then she accepts her award. Mariah comes out, she gives her the belt, and Luther gave her glasses, and she pulls out a speech, and then she says, "I had nothing prepared," and then she reads this speech, and the crowd's chanting, "Speech, speech, speech," and she says, "I want to thank Anthony Khan and the wonderful people at Warner Discovery, especially Jack Warner, who I'm assuming is the guy that founded this studio 100 years ago." And they tried to play her off, and she's like, "Don't play me off." That was cute. She says, "Everyone who trained me, the fans, Akara Shida, all the little Toni Storms out there," they went into the crowd. They found a little girl who couldn't have been less interested. I don't know if that was on purpose, but she said, "This is my spot. You will not take it. You will not make it. Stay in school, get a trade. Thank you." Cue the standing ovation. And then Tony was giving Taz a hard time because he wasn't standing up like the fans, and he said that his knee was bad. And
that was funny.
Yeah, I just thought it was, I don't know, I just thought it was dumb, but it led into the entrances for the 3-way women's match that we were about to have. But tell me why you like this.
Oh, wow.
Even though as I was describing it, it sounds like I liked it, but I don't know.
Yeah. Look, I understand why people may not like this character at this point. People might think the AEW is indulging a little bit too much. And, obviously you want to find that balance between a very wacky NXT gimmick and then an actual character, and then actually have it transform to AEW, which is supposed to be something serious, right? For what this was very short. If this would have
it was
been
5 minutes tops.
Yeah, like every cute thing they got in was good. Nothing like felt forced. They weren't trying to go longer. I thought this was the right amount of time. And obviously continuing to focus Mariah May, like fantastic, keep doing that. Now, obviously I don't know with the altercation with Sky Blue and Toni Storm, are they going to potentially do that down the road? Who
Well,
knows?
she
But
ended up winning the match, spoiler alert, so I assume they're
right.
going there.
They didn't say, at least they didn't say, hey, whoever wins is going to be fodder for Toni Storm. They just said, so maybe slowly but surely that's like a way of a roundabout way of trying to go back to rankings, kind of sort of, without actually having rankings. So I did appreciate that. But just back to Toni Storm, I think the one reason, Paul, for me, I've loved this character from day one. AEW has not given a woman specifically in the company this agency to be this creative. Obviously, I think I've seen, Tony's been very appreciative of Toni. Obviously, Toni was lost his shit in the scrum when you read Toni Storm's script. So, is this Toni Storm? Is this Tony Khan? Like, who's doing what? The majority of what? Maybe they're both doing collaboration. I just wish Tony Khan would allow someone else, like maybe a Nyla Rose, like something to resonate more, because obviously with the women in AEW, you want to have the wrestling get over, but right now it seems like if you want these women to be draws, to be consistently on TV, you got to give them a character, give them a gimmick, something fans can relate. And timeless Toni Storm is over right now. She's the most over thing in the company, and despite the silliness for the women, for sure. Despite the silliness of the gimmick, for those who may not like it, she's still a great wrestler in the ring. And if anything, I can't think of a women's angle or story that's potentially made. Well, I guess Hayter and Baker to a degree, but if this vehicle of Timeless Storm, Toni Storm, can lead to Mariah May dethroning her and being the next big star, that's the goal here. So, you obviously you want to do show not tell. So at least I can see a pathway where it's like, okay, we're taking baby steps in the right direction. You just want them to be a little bit more consistent with that, because we're in year 4 now.
They planted a seed here too with her talking about, you can't take my spot. Like that was, that's every, where everyone assumes, that this is going with Mariah May. So that part of it was good. Yeah, I mean, the way you describe it, like the point about him allowing the women to be more creative, and especially with their own stuff. I like that, so, I will say, like, Toni performs this character incredibly well.
Yes.
I think it's just the fact that it kind of treats the title itself, and in a bigger way, the whole idea of pro wrestling, as a bit of a joke. But it's just something I guess I just have to accept. But
yes.
So as I mentioned, it led into a match, and we got Sky Blue's entrance, and then we went to commercial, and we came back, and then we got Anna Jay and Ruby Soho. So it was a 3-way. This match wasn't good. The Tony Schiavone at some point here, because they started this match at 17 minutes left in the show, and we still had the main event. So Tony Schiavone said, we're sticking with this program as long as we need to. It's a Thanksgiving present from Tony Khan. And so I thought that was interesting. Ruby hit a Saito suplex on Sky, stomped in the corner, kicks in the head. Parker was helping on at first. He pulled Sky's boot, and Excalibur reminded us that it's no DQ. So, he can interfere all he wants, which is quite the contrast from the tournament. But they go to commercial, they come back, and then the crowd, sometimes in these matches, like they'll come back from commercial and the crowd is just going nuts. And here the crowd was completely dead. So you can tell, like, I fast forward through the commercials, so I don't know how the matches are, but that's usually my gauge of how well they're going. And here it clearly wasn't going good, and you could see it. Like, half the moves they were going for, they weren't quite hitting. And the focus of this match was on Ruby Storm and Angela Parker. They're flirting, and then Saraya and Menard are like pulling them away, like, their parents. It's like a Romeo and Juliet thing, and and they're the Capulets and the Montagues, and so they're trying to keep them away from each other. And they go back in the ring. Jay super kicked Ruby and or outside the ring and threw her in the ring, and then Sky was back in, did a dive on both of them. That got a bit of a pop. She went for a code blue, and I mean, she has not been hitting this at all lately. And I'm like, oh my God, what's this going to be? But then Anna dropped her, and Ruby broke it up. And here here's where the match started falling apart. Like, they're just trying to do things, and they're just off on everything. And then Menard grabbed Ruby's foot. He and Saraya argued. Sky hit Ruby with a couple knees, and then she went for a kick. I mean, I think the idea was that she hit it, except she didn't even come close to hitting it. And then, Ruby fell off the apron and into Matt Parker's arms. And then they're like staring at each other longingly. And then Matt Menard shows up, and he's like, put her down. And then Saraya pulled her off. And so as this is all going on, in bed, they're back in the ring. Anna was going for a Queen Slayer. Sky hit her with a thrust kick. And then they're still arguing outside the ring. They're focusing more on what's going on outside the ring than in the ring. I think Sky Blue hit a cutter, and then Ruby was trying to make the save and didn't make the save in time. So Sky Blue got the win. And my big issue with this, on top of the fact that the match sucked, was that we had these 3 women having a match. And I assume the winner is going to get a title shot, except the whole story of this match was the person that hasn't won any matches in forever, Ruby Soho, is in love with a jobber. And that's what we're supposed to care about, and not the fact that, like, a woman might have just won a title shot. So that's my issue. And any good that they did in the Toni Storm thing, if you think they did good, it's back here, because there's a phrase Jeff always uses. I can never remember it. Maybe you'll know, maybe somebody in the chat knows, but it's something about, if there's a woman on screen, they got to be interacting with a man, yeah. And so, this whole thing was built around Jeff Parker and Ruby Soho, and they're both losers.
Yeah.
I mean, that according to the story they're telling, I'm not saying in real life or anything, obviously.
For sure.
Sky Blue is at the second most matches on AEW TV. Wow. That doesn't surprise me, because I keep track of all the matches I watch.
Yeah.
Did you like this any better than I did?
I mean, I feel like I'm pretty kind to women's matches on AEW, or just women's matches in general. This was heatless and not good. Let's start good news. I want to go back to something Twan Mac there was saying. So traditionally with AEW in general, right? Yeah. No, you were good. The one where he said Sky Blue actually had the second most matches. And then of course Orange Cassidy's number 1. Thank you for that. I would have never guessed. Or Orange actually, that makes sense.
I think Moxley's third.
Okay. Well, consistently, right, with the women, like for if there was a challenger of the week, right, for TBS or women's title, you'd see him on there a week, and then to go away. It would be, okay, we'll put you back on TV in about a month and a half when it's time to lose to Jade or Jamie or whomever. So they have been consistently putting Sky Blue and Julia Hart on TV consistently. Good step in the right direction, because if you want people to connect to women in AEW in general, put them on television. I understand they might be a little green, a little rough at sometimes. You had mentioned, Sky's had some trouble with Sky Blue here recently, her Code Red finisher. But still consistently put them on television. Like, it's taken Julia some time, but man, she's finally gotten there, and she's gotten rewarded for it, because I don't know where you were when Julia Hart first did her little entrance. I believe it was about 4 or 5 months ago, and I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. I think I'm into this.
Well, I'd been seeing it on Dark, so like I knew like it was good. So
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe whenever the first time I saw it was on Rampage,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh,
I think it was against
really?
Anna Jay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then obviously throughout that field, so I was like, all right, we're building something here. And then
Mm-hmm.
you look at how she's kind of grown, and I don't. Mm, it might be too early to say this, but it's kind of cool in a way. AEW has their own version of Rhea Ripley in a minor way, because to
Yeah.
me, Julia Hart is the biggest deal in the House of Black, and I think she's been the. It's really cool that they, a men's group is kind of been actually overshadowed by women. Like more of that. That's
Yeah.
great.
Well, and yeah,
But
and I mean, we got a mini version of that with Anna Jay and the former JAS as well.
yeah, for sure, in a way. And I understand putting Sky on Chicago because duh, that's a home run. Could you? I would have almost rather had Sky and Julia Hart. That probably would have given you a better match. I mean, yeah, you probably don't want to beat Sky Blue again, but I mean, why? I would rather at this point have a better match. She can have an L. That's absolutely fine. Um, I don't know if Ruby Soho is it anymore, Paul. Like
Yeah.
I
I'm not sure if she ever had it, honestly, but um I
yeah,
when she came over from WWE, I think she was on a high, and I think she was presented really well, and she fed off that.
right.
And the other thing is what you don't realize is the women, not just the women, like the men as well in WWE, like they're actually really well trained. And I
Yes.
think sometimes what happens is when they come over, you remember Ty Conti and how
Mm-hmm.
everyone just raved about her when she came over and how WWE let her go. She's so good. And then, like, as you see her more and more, you start to see, oh, maybe she's not that great. But when she first got there, she was great. Well, maybe that's because she had good training in WWE. Everyone wants to slam their training system, but maybe there's something to that. And I mean, I know Ruby was around a long time before she even got to WWE. So, it could just be that she's off. It's also she's working with these women that are green themselves, so it may not be
Right.
entirely her fault. Um,
For sure.
and she's also in the storyline that maybe that's the focus, and it's not the wrestling. So
Yeah. Like I'm for if you need a smoke and mirrors something, which I think they've been able to execute sometimes on women's matches. If you feel like something needs smoke and mirrors, like make it good smoke and mirrors. This was kind of just really bad. Like the match wasn't good. That added if that maybe would have been fun, like an Orange Cassidy or Danhausen kind of fun, maybe we would have had a better time like absorbing this, but that was bad. I don't know potentially what they're gonna do with Angelo and Ruby. Are we getting a weird wedding?
oh god,
Okay, sure, whatever.
I mean, maybe it's just going to split him off from the group, and if that's it, and maybe you have MJF, Angelo and Ruby as kind of like a wild child kind of Mickey and Mallory kind of couple. I don't know.
Sure.
Maybe they do that. Um, if it gets him away from that group, I think that might be a good thing too, because I'm sick of that group. Wardlow is working out backstage, and Renee found him, and she asked him, "What are you waiting for?" And he said, "The world doesn't revolve around MJF. The downfall of the devil is going to happen on my time." And Eric Fox, of all people, interrupts him, and he compares what he's going through with MJF to what he's going through with MJF to what like Eric Fox did with Darby, and Wardlow just wasn't having any of it, and he headbutted him in the throat. And then I assume they're just going to have a match on Saturday. So another loss for
Yeah,
Air Fox, which is fine with me. I
yeah,
don't
that
care about
that
it.
that seems like a Collision special written all over it,
Yeah,
which is fine because Wardlow's
yeah,
been quite entertaining at
yeah.
those.
And obviously there's something going on with him that we're going to get to. So and then we get to the main event, and it's Mark Briscoe and John Moxley, and this was obviously a tournament match in the Gold League. And Excalibur reminded us that Briscoe's got a long history in tag team tournaments, and Moxley just did the G1 in 2019. So that was a nice little attention to detail. They gave their typical, like sometimes they'll do these in like an off-camera segment between matches. Sometimes they do it in matches. So we got our Collision and Rampage lineups, except all we got was 2 matches from Collision, Eddie Kingston and Brody King, and Danny Garcia and Claudio Castagnoli. So those are matches in the Blue League, and no Danielson and Andrade this week, as far as we know. I guess they're possibly, if maybe he gets cleared in time and they can get him there, but they're not advertising it. I don't think I mentioned this yet, but Rampage is airing Saturday, an hour before Collision. So we get a 3-hour block again on Saturday of Rampage and Collision back to back. Excalibur picked Claudio to win the tournament. And then he asked Taz who he picks, and he said Moxley. So not bad picks there. And I noted here that they went to commercial with 3 minutes left in the show, which is weird because you come back from commercial, it's the top of the hour, and like some people aren't going to come back. Like they're just going to go to another show. So weird timing there. I don't know if something went long, or I can't think of what it would have been. Maybe the Roos J. White match. I don't know, but we'll probably hear something about it in the next couple of days. But they came back, and Briscoe had busted himself open during the break. I didn't see how it happened, but right away he starts banging his head into the turnbuckles just to open up the cut even more. Then they just kind of went, fast paced, because I don't think they had much time. I didn't see the time, but it felt like it was probably about 10 minutes. And they just went nuts. Moxley went for a sleeper, went to transition to an armbar. Briscoe hit the ropes. Briscoe came off the top, but Moxley intercepted into a paradigm shift. Briscoe hit a low drop kick and then a Death Valley driver. Went to the top for the froggy bow, and Moxley kicked out. And then Taz, I wish he would just shut up sometimes, but he called him Froggy Bow Jones. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? We're in a serious tournament here, and you're going to do your stupid AEW dark jokes. But anyways, Briscoe went for the J Driller. Moxley hit the Lariat and the Death Rider. Briscoe kicked out of the Death Rider, so that was cool. Moxley went for hit the rear naked, and then he transitioned into a Bulldog choke. Briscoe kicked off the ropes into a pin, and Moxley kicked out. Mox hit a half and half suplex. Crowd's going nuts. They did a chop battle. Moxley kicked out his leg, stomped him, a curb stomp, and the crowd was like, whoa, like they weren't expecting that. And then he hit a Death Rider and got the pin, and clean pin. They shook hands after. And then like Moxley's music played for like 3 minutes, and they showed the standings, and they, he walked around, and I don't know why they stayed on the air as long as they did. It kind of frustrates me because my feed cut out again. I had my PVR set for 15 minutes, but for some reason TSN sometimes airs them on different stations. So it was only on the one station so I got 3 minutes, and then I had to go back and watch the next show. But because I was watching live, I couldn't fast forward. So I had to watch 3 minutes I'd already watched. And then it was, I basically watched it because I was figuring, well, maybe there's an angle or something. But no, just Moxley walking around, listening to his music. So I thought it was a great match. Kevin says MJF might have went long. So that's possible. No tournament matches on Rampage unless we're going to get Andrade and Danielson, which, I suppose if Danielson gets cleared, that's possible. So Twan thinks Briscoe is going to win the whole thing. It's possible.
Wow.
Yeah.
I could be mistaken, Paul, but I don't think they really advertised Rampage as matches for the tournament.
Not a single thing. Oh, I don't think they did, but I don't think that necessarily means there won't be either.
Okay. Because I'm trying to, when Tony was plugging the map.
Well, you watched the thing, so.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing Rampage on there. Like, it was mainly just from, I could be mistaken, but I just remember seeing Collision, Dynamite, just because I know, like, they'd say, oh, we're going to Oklahoma City and then San Antonio, and then I didn't really see, again, like you said, doesn't necessarily mean there couldn't be, Rampage on the back end potentially after Dynamite, but I'm gathering.
Well, it would make sense if they were all Dynamite and Collision, honestly.
Right.
This was the best match on the show for, considerably. Like this was a G1 match, essentially.
Yes.
Not like a top end G1 match, but a really good one. I enjoyed this match a lot. And this is matches like this are what I want to see. I made the prediction. I think Brody King and Eddie Kingston on Saturday are gonna steal the show. I think they're gonna have like a match to set the tone for the rest of this tournament. I just think it's gonna unexpectedly blow people away. That's my prediction. But did you like this match?
Oh yeah, really. I thought Briscoe was gonna win.
Oh,
So
really? Wow.
yeah, well, just he kicked out of the Death Rider,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
was like, oh, okay, are we gonna have our first upset night one? And ultimately, that's what you want to draw in the audience because AEW for a while has been, especially when they do tournaments traditionally, you could look at the brackets and say, "Oh, well, that's pretty predictable. That's not really." So in a way, I don't not mind them actually having physical brackets. Like scoreboards are good. Get like so that way we know, but like I guess in a way, not having like the schedules ahead of time is actually kind of a good idea. So that way it
Mm.
provides that kind of unpredictability. I guess similar to like the NCAA tournament where it's just like, hey, we're going like, Jay White won today, so we won't know, his opponent until this match, blah, blah, blah. So I don't really mind that fundamentally. I think that's really good. Yeah, I thought I was surprised this was the first time Briscoe and Moxley have ever locked up and touched. I thought that was really
Yeah.
cool. That was a very good. I believe it was Excalibur that might have brought that up before the match actually started.
Yeah.
Briscoe looks great
Oh,
because
yeah.
he was it an ankle or shoulder or what did he have
I honestly
surgery
don't
on?
remember. I don't
Yeah,
remember.
but he looks great. He looks in a phenomenal shape. He was moving around really well. Um, if anything, another small victory that they can take from this tournament. I need Tweener Moxley gone. I hate like this. John Moxley is like he's one of my favorite heroes to cheer for. Paul, like he's that guy's guy. Like this. Ultimately, if the tournament just obliterates the Blackpool Combat Club as a whole, completely okay with that. I
Oh,
think I like each person individually more than actually collectively because I want to cheer John Moxley and I think I want to cheer Claudio too. It's just
and
this
obviously
group kind of
Danielson. So.
yeah, of course Danielson too, and then like I
And
just
Wheeler's a little shithead. So
yeah, Wheeler I think still has promise to be a shithead and then maybe
yeah,
eventually turn. But
yeah.
just Moxley, this tweener role, it's kind of sucked for me. I just need him to be back to being our champ like he can. Um, I don't know. So I know I want to go back to what you said to Kingston and Brody. I think that's probably our first draw. I think that goes to draw.
That could be. I mean, they could do a double count out. I don't see them going 20 minutes, but they could do a
Oh,
double
that'd be
count out.
fantastic. That
Yeah.
that would be lovely. I didn't ask. So collectively, right now, who are your finals picks and who's your winner?
So my final four, um, I got to be careful here because I got some information about what the plans are, but I'm not sure how reliable they are. But so I'm just going to go with what I said on
Interesting.
Garrett's show. So I think the block we saw tonight, I think the finals are going to be Moxley and Swerve, and I think that Swerve is going to upset Moxley in the round robin, but perhaps lose to him. But I think maybe he's going to win, and so I kind of have him going into the finals. And on the other side, I think we've got Eddie Kingston and Danielson are probably the two favorites, and I could see them making the finals. But I could also see, and this is why I'd love to see a schedule because I could see them coming down to the last night, and Danielson needs a win over Daniel Garcia to make it to the finals,
Mm.
and Garcia takes him to a draw. And then that gets Claudio in there against Eddie Kingston in the finals. And so we have Claudio and Eddie on one side and Moxley and Swerve on the other side. That's what I would do. And then you've got out of that, you have four potentially great matches that you can do. Or is it three? I don't know. One, two, yeah, no, three, four. Yeah. Either way, any one of those four against each other is a great match. And I think Swerve's winning this thing. But there's a possibility it could be Eddie Kingston just retains his titles and creates a triple crown. So what do you got?
I think I thought about this for a while, and then this was going around Twitter, and I thought about it. I think I want Kingston Moxley.
Yeah, yeah. That's what Garrett called for on the previous show we did. And that's
I
how you
don't
get there
know.
because you know what's great about that? I'll let you do your point, but
Yeah,
what's great about that is these guys are best friends, but they've been at odds and they've
right.
never really touched I mean, I can't remember if they actually. I don't think they did in the Stadium Stampede match, but this would force them to have to wrestle. You know what I mean? So you're not just booking it. Like these two both won their things. They have to wrestle. So that's probably the best way to get to this match. But you go ahead.
Right. Yeah, because I was gonna say, like, ultimately, does Kingston putting up his titles, does that telegraph him potentially for the finals? Not necessarily. And then I've seen the complaints on, oh well, Swerve is above this, or everything like that. But like you said, you had pitched a perfect strategy, because if you can still have Swerve go in here and beat Moxley clean as a whistle, but then Jay White screws him over, and then because he loses to Jay White, Moxley's in the finals.
Yeah,
I mean, that you can still, after all of this, do Swerve and if this leads to Swerve and Kingston or Swerve and
love
Moxley,
the idea of a Swerve Kingston feud.
That'd be phenomenal.
Yeah, but I also want to see Kingston and Moxley against each other. So
yes,
yeah, there's a lot of things I want to see. But yeah, like, and Jay White screwing him, that could end up leading to a Swerve babyface turn.
yes.
Like, and I think the fans really want to cheer Swerve. So, like that could happen too. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways they can go here. I put up the thing, but people in audio wouldn't have heard, obviously. John Muse, from Fight Game Media, who had an excellent article about Tomohiro Ishii that may have helped get him into the Hall of Fame. He's also predicting Kingston and Moxley, and he laid out a booking scenario of how you would get there. So that's in our Fight Game Media Discord. I should send you. Are you on Discord?
I haven't. I have not used Discord in quite a while.
Oh, you should. I should send you an invite, because it's basically like our old Facebook group. It's the same people,
cool.
And yeah. So I'll send you an invite off air, obviously. And obviously, anybody listening, if you're on the Patreon, you're not already in the Discord, you can get an invite. Just send me a DM or send Garrett an email, gg@fightgamemedia.com, and we'll get you into the Discord, because it's a lot of fun. We got a lot of great discussions there. Sometimes they get a little heated, but most of the time it's pretty good. So that was the show, and this tournament will roll on, and yeah, we'll see. We'll know by about a month from now who's in the finals. And decent start. I wouldn't say it blew us away. The show overall, like, this wasn't the best Dynamite. Definitely wasn't the worst. I mean, there was nothing overly horrible on the show. Other, the women's match wasn't very good, but and even the Toni Storm segment that I didn't particularly like it wasn't bad. It's just not really my cup of tea. And everything else was, I thought pretty good. So not great, but fine.
I would say a very fine table setting.
Episode of Dynamite. Like a 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
And
that's okay. That's fine.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I want the better shows to be like probably the go homes, or like something you've built to. So like if we get a bunch of 7 out of 10s leading up to a 10 out of 10 in the group finals, sign me up. I'm good for that.
Yep.
All right, Brian, let's get some plugs in.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate again the opportunity to be the your co-pilot today. Again, I apologize to you, Paul, and everybody listening, watching, for my audio issues. So we started a little bit later than expected. So thanks again for being patient with us. But yes, I'm at PW Torch. If you'd like to read anything about Collision, me and Wade actually do reports on Collision weekly. So I handle that for the Torch. I'll have some occasional pieces floated in there. And I will be attending Final Battle. So
awesome.
So hopefully I'll have some content available
for
that. Yes. And I'll be going to the show, the Collision show, the next day, because the good thing about the Final Battle show, it's actually on a Friday. So that's why I was like, so I get Collision on our Ring of Honor Friday, and then Collision that Saturday. And then of course there's an opportunity to see Ronda Rousey in a Ring of Honor show. That's
we don't know, but that's what I'm thinking.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I'm gonna put it out there, but hopefully in the next coming weeks, so I'll have some additional content down the road. But always appreciate the opportunity to about you guys at Fight Game. You guys do a great job, and
awesome.
Just glad to have the opportunity to speak with you, Paul.
And it's at Brian Zilem on Twitter.
Yes.
All right.
Very simple.
And for me, I obviously do this show every week. I did a show with Garrett earlier today. If you didn't hear it, it was kind of like a primer for the tournament. So a lot of it is, stuff that isn't necessarily out of date. So you can still go back and listen to it if you want. It'll be in your audio feed and also on the YouTube channel if you're on the Patreon. And then I'll be back next week with Ryan Frederick to recap or to preview actually the UFC show in your end of the woods in Austin, right?
Yes.
So we're still looking for a co-main event in that one. What's Dan Hooker pulled out. So and obviously I'm on Twitter, X, Paul Ace Fontaine, and I'm in the Discord as well. So check us out there. So for Brian, I've been Paul, and this has been the Dynamite Show. Later.